everyone. Thank you for joining us today for a single source of truth for billable and payable time with FX Timecards. We're happy that you've taken the time to join us today. My name is Emily Rhodes. I'm the Director of Marketing at Liquid Frameworks, and I will be acting as the moderator for our webinar today. Let's start with some housekeeping notes. We've muted the phone lines on our end to avoid any interruptions during the presentation. We will allow for a short question and answer session at the end of the presentation. So if you have a question, just pop it into the chat section on the right-hand side of the screen, and we will answer it at the end of today's session. Next, I'd like to introduce our speakers. Joining us today, we have Pacey Wheeler, Business Operations Lead with Shawcor Inspection Services, Matt Dana, Senior Director of Product Strategy at Liquid Frameworks, and Bob Swanson, Senior Solutions Engineer, also with Liquid Frameworks. We're really excited to talk about the new and improved Timecards module, and there have been a lot of really cool updates to this module. We're eager to share them with you. We're also going to talk about how pairing Timecards with ticketing and schedule and dispatch provides a streamlined solution for time management, which ultimately enhances efficiency and accuracy. In addition, Casey's here to share Shawcor's use case of the FX Timecards module. Hopefully you got all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Matt. Hopefully his speaker won't go out. Thanks, everybody.
Well, thanks everyone for joining. I'm really excited to talk about this topic. We've had a Timecard app for quite some time, years. Just as is always the case with software, things evolve. Software is really more of like a living thing, right? So it changes and we revise it and we build on top of it over time. And what we've done now is we've built an upgraded Timecard app specifically for phones. We've introduced new objects and some other business benefits that come along with that. But I'm excited to talk about this topic because this is sort of our launch party here. So let's get into the detail. Really quick before we get started, this is sort of a signature safe harbor. This just basically states that any purchasing decision should be based on then current features and functionality. Let's talk a little bit about the business value. So really, why did we decide that? And this is really more for people that are not totally familiar with the existing Timecard product. I think that the customers on the call that use the Timecard app, I think that they understand that these are the sort of the drivers behind why we would even want to go down this road and what differentiates Liquid Frameworks versus some of our competition. The first thing really is inherent integration with the rest of the product suite, right? So we have a variety of modules that we provide to customers, and those modules all play nicely and are inherently integrated with one another. So when you start talking about Timecards, which we'll get into here in a second, a little bit more detail, but when you start talking about Timecards, you're talking about managing the time off and how does that factor into schedule and dispatch and how can we feed the time from the field ticket, right, in the e-ticketing module, right? So you have these different modules that all play nicely together, and that's really a big part of the value that we're looking to provide here. Second, payroll accuracy and efficiency gains, replacing paper. I've done a lot of interviews on Timecards and sort of figured out how our timesheets processed and how our field tickets processed, and really a lot of meeting with technicians or meeting with back office administrators. And really what I've gathered is that it's very inefficient to deal with paper. You have an influx of timesheets or an influx of tickets at the end of the pay period or at the end of the month. And then someone is burdened with going through and making sure that everything is measured and you have time, field ticket time, and you're measuring that against the payable time that's coming in from the timesheets. And then there's a sort of a reconciliation process that takes place. We have to go back to the technician and figure out why is there a discrepancy and so on. So I think this is just sort of being part of a system, and especially part of an integrated system. Everything is all funneling into the same place. Crew utilization. So this is important because it gives visibility. And really this is with the existing Timecard app, but really with the new Timecard app as well. Crew utilization is critically important, especially in the times that we're in now, making sure that everyone is utilized and the business has real visibility into the payable time versus the non-billable time versus time off, and being able to factor all that in to figure out, where can we maybe shuffle people around. If you have one location where you're underutilized and another where you're overutilized, well, maybe you need to think about moving some people onto different jobs and that type of thing. And the Timecard app, in conjunction with the rest of the modules that we provide, really provides that visibility into the data. And lastly, a single source of truth. And I probably should have put this one first or second at least, but this is really a big benefit. And it kind of ties back into the inherent integration with the rest of the product suite. Normally, the way it works in a manual world is that the technicians enter the time on their timesheet, and the supervisors are tracking billable time for that same person on a field ticket. You send everything into someone in the office, and that person is responsible for reconciling and making sure that the time matches up. So I think one of the primary benefits, and it's certainly not a requirement by the system, but I would say it's a primary benefit, is that the time being put in by the supervisor for what you're charging to the customer can automatically funnel into the timesheet. And then the technician from their phone can open it up and they can see, okay, here's my billable time. Okay, well, let me enter my non-billable time or let me request PTO, but they have that visibility. And that sort of eliminates a series of steps involved with making sure that the time is accurate and measures up with what you're billing and what you're paying your employees. So I want to get into a little bit more detail. We talked about some of this. I'm not going to cover everything in an excruciating amount of detail here, but really when you start looking at the business problems that we're solving, and this is really the case with all of our modules and with our entire product suite, we like to target personas, right? So what is the business value that we're providing? And in this case, we have executives, right? So higher level finance or executive level that are concerned with the efficiency of the staff, with the utilization of the crews, making sure that you're not hiring a bunch of people if you have other people that can be moved from another location to cover the shortage in staff at, in another location. And that goes with equipment as well, but for the purposes of Timecard, we're really talking about the employees. And then the accuracy of the payroll, right? That's very important to make sure that the people that should be getting paid and that are employed with your company are getting paid the right amount without a lot of overhead to figure out, why is it that the times are off. Admin, billing, payroll. So this really describes sort of a back office administrator. What we typically see within our customer base is that it may be maybe sometimes one or two people, or it could be multiple, but you're talking about people that sort of have a blended role, right? You're talking about administrators of the system. They also handle a lot of the AR and AP. And so a lot of this information provides a lot of value to those employees. And so they spend a lot of time, according to my interviews, at the end of the month or at the end of the pay period, consolidating, making sure that the payable time matches up with the billable time. And with a one-stop shop solution like we have, you get all that information all funneled in through the same place. And then there's full visibility and reporting and dashboarding to see what people need to get paid and what people, how much you're charging out for those people and for their time. And then lastly, the technician. So this is really the one that we've made a big revision on. We've had all the other benefits that are listed here. We've had, like I said, we've had a Timecard app for several years, and just with the revisions that we're now making, it really provides a better user experience for the technician. So there's new technologies available now. Really, the way that we like to frame it is it's a one-stop shop for the tech, for his time. He can go in, he can see how much time he's getting charged out for, that he's going to get paid for. You can also see his payroll or his non-chargeable time or his non-billable time. And then he has full visibility into his timesheets and all the approvals and that take place with making sure that he's submitting to his manager and that's getting approved. And for the time off, I'm not going to steal all of Bob's thunder because he's got a demo set up for you. But really, it's a new app, right? So it's available iOS and Android. Pending approval. So right now we're really at the final stages of this. We're pending approval from the App Store and the Play Store, and so the app is going to be immediately available. And we'll send out some communication to let you know when it's actually ready, prime time ready for consumption. But we're talking, a matter of a week or two. So the app is a native app. It's downloaded from the Play Stores. So I just want to reiterate this point, and I'm not going to belabor it, but I think it's very important because it really describes the value that our Timecard app has versus any other apps that are on the market. And that's part of being part of an integrated solution here. So you have Field FX. Well, what does that mean, right? So we have a Timecard app, that's great, but S&D, okay, well, how does this manifest itself in S&D? Well, through my app, I can submit a time off request, it can be approved, and then as part of schedule and dispatch, the dispatcher can automatically see that I'm off for certain days, right? So you have that visibility, and you have the notifications for when people are double booked or when you've booked them when they're off, right? So there's some notifications that automatically come out of the system. The e-ticketing in the second box there, it's like I forgot my icon, but the e-ticketing app, this is really the point where the supervisors or the technicians that are doing the work in the field, billable time, billable tickets that are signed by the customer, can put the time in, right? So rather than someone having to track time on a timesheet and someone else having to track time on a ticket and doing that reconciliation after the fact, it can all funnel through the same place, which is the billable time comes in through the ticket and the non-billable time can come in through the app. And you get full visibility on the back office side of things from an administrative standpoint, but also the technician on his phone can look and see all the time that he's going to be getting paid. So that helps with making sure that you can sort of pick up on any sort of problems or discrepancies rather than waiting until the very end of the month or the very end of the pay period. And lastly, EAM. So something that we're working on. EAM is our enterprise asset management module. It allows for management of work orders and preventative maintenance, corrective work orders, purchase orders, inventory management, full warehouse management. It's a separate webinar. But this Timecard app also factors into the scheduling of the mechanics. So if you have someone that's going to be needing to work on a specific type of maintenance post-job inspection for a piece of equipment, the time card and the time off that's been submitted through the app automatically will filter. And so the person who's doing the scheduling, really the maintenance manager, can see that, hey, Matt is going to be off for these days, so let's not schedule him, right? So we're just trying to distribute, and this is like this with all of our modules. We're trying to distribute the information that's coming in from each app to all the other apps. Let's talk about some features. We've talked about some of these already. Time tracked on tickets. This is where we talked about where the field ticket time, the billable time, it's not a requirement, but it certainly is a best practice that the billable time can be fed in through the field ticketing app. So you have a single point of data entry, and then the non-billable time is tracked through the app. So that's really a big part of the business value that we're providing here. PTO requests and approvals. This is a new feature. We did not have this feature before, but we do now. So this is from my phone as a technician or as any employee, really. I can go in and say I want to submit a PTO request from this date and time to this date and time, and this is the reason. You submit that, it gets run through an approval process, and a manager looks at it, they request they approve it, and automatically it then filters those people out of scheduling and EAM and some of the other modules that we provide. Mobile time entry. We've had this for quite some time. We're just making improvements here, right? So this is the ability for the technician to use his phone. Like I said, it's a native app, so it's available on the App Store and the Play Store. Download it just like you normally would any other app on your phone, and it gives you a nice, slick, intuitive user interface that we've had a user interface before, but this has sort of been upgraded, right? So it's brought up to the current times, and I think you'll see that when you look at Bob's demo. Approval visibility. So not only being able to see the time that's been submitted for me, but also seeing any sort of PTO that I've submitted or time that's come in from the tickets or time that I've, non-billable time that I've submitted. You have full visibility in the app to look at the different approval steps that have taken place. So there really is no question as to what should I be getting paid. You can see whether things have been approved, submitted, rejected, and so on. And then lastly, this is a nice usability feature. I really like this. This is really for like repeatable work. So an employee is out on a job site, they're doing the same thing from day to day, the same hours really from day to day, rather than having to hit a new button, put 8 to 5 or type in the number of hours. You can copy hours, right? So this makes it very easy for the technicians to go in and just say, I want to copy, and it automatically will pull those metrics down and apply them to the current day that you've clicked on. So that's just a high-level list of features. We'll publish something a little more formalized, to the masses, so that you guys can have this. We'll have a data sheet. But I just wanted to, as part of the webinar, to kind of give you some visibility into this. This is what it looks like. And Bob will show you more detail. I'm not going to walk through this, but this is what it looks like. You have your pay period at the top, which is all configurable. statuses, and then you have your days down below. And you can see whether it's billable time or non-billable time and your total hours that you should be getting paid. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Emily, and we will get started with Casey's part of it.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Thanks for walking us through that. And I'd like to introduce Casey Wheeler from Shawcor Inspection Services. Casey?
Thank you. All right. So, yeah, I'm from Shawcor Inspection Services. Just kind of quick at a glance, Shawcor is actually a Canadian-based company. We have over 6,000 employees worldwide, 105 global locations, more. We're operating in over 20 countries across the globe, 9 mobile coating plants, and estimated at $2 billion revenue every year. It's kind of a high-level overview of Shawcor in general. Now on the Shawcor inspection service side, go to the next slide. So this shows Shawcor. We have a 5 different kind of breakdowns here. We've got the pipeline performance, the composite product production systems, integrity management, oilfield asset management, and the connection systems. Now Shawcor inspection services is under the integrity management division here. We are the non-union version of the integrity management portion of it that does non-destructive testing. We have our sister company, which is Shaw Pipeline Services, which they're also utilizing the Timecard app, and I'll kind of go over that here in just a minute. But we're both non-destructive testing companies that basically we go out and X-ray wells and to test the integrity of any kind of welds and new pipeline, any of the different types of integrity management type systems. But we'll go ahead and jump to the next slide. So Shawcor Inspection Services, just kind of an overview of our division. We have over 450 employees nationwide, 162. These are different technician types. Level 2 RT technicians, which is like X-ray. Level 2 RTR, we have 28 level 2 RTR technicians, which is real-time radiography. It's a digital X-ray. CR, which is computerized radiography. X-ray crawler, we have 12 X-ray crawler level 2s. 10 level 2 AUT operators, 12 pipeline integrity technicians, which as the integrity technicians do different corrosion monitoring, doing digs, that kind of thing, doing some testing that way, and then 6 AS&T level 3s. Go ahead and go to the next one here. So we basically have 12 different locations. Primarily, we're located in Texas and surrounding areas there. Just kind of give you an idea of where SIS, or Shawcor Inspection Services, our division is mainly located, mainly central lower U.S. here. Go to the next one. So Shawcor joined up with Liquid Frameworks back in the spring of 2015. We were really looking for something to integrate our ticketing system, because we were doing the paper tickets with the carbon copies, and trying to keep everything organized with the ticketing system, and then our time cards, being able to keep track of time and different users, trying to make sure our technicians and our assistants and our admins were able to keep track of their time without being on just a regular paper time card, filling it out by hand and turning it in that way, or by taking a picture out in the field with a camera or the cell phone and emailing it to the admin to keep track of their time. It got pretty big headache trying to keep track of everything. So we decided to look into the digital ticketing and digital time cards and found that frameworks to be a really good fit for us. So currently we have over 200 field FXE ticketing users. We have over 430 time card users between us and SBS, Shop Pipeline. And then over 28 field FX scheduling dispatch users. Go ahead and jump to the next slide. So just kind of a high level, I guess, overview of some of the benefits and features that we've taken advantage of, and this helped us immensely throughout the years, switching over to the digital sector, especially the time cards. It's easier for the technicians to submit both billable and non-billable time. We were having a lot of problems trying to keep track of the non-billable, keep our expenses low, especially with the non-billable. Keep track of the guys in the office doing shop work or changing chemicals or doing the non-billable stuff. And then also the billable time, trying to make sure the tickets match up with the time cards every week during payroll. It was a headache trying to keep track of the paper time cards. And bringing this together, it made it so much easier for our technicians to submit both billable and non-billable. Again, no paper time cards. That was one of the biggest benefits of the time card portion of this, is just trying to keep track of paper time cards with guys that are out of the office or out in the field working out of town, and the only way to get their time submitted was to, they fill out a timesheet and then take a picture with their phone or FedEx it in, and it was expensive. And then trying to keep track of that, it got pretty tedious. Ticket time matches on the time cards. Over that, there's a lot less human error with the time cards. You didn't have that, the technicians filling out and have their handwriting. Some of their handwriting was pretty bad, trying to keep track of hours and make sure the tickets matched up their time cards and their paychecks. So less time the admins have to spend on payroll. It freed up so much time. We were spending basically between 6 and 8 hours a week just on trying to match up tickets in our payroll with the time cards and submitting the time with the employees with as many employees as we had turning in the paper timesheets. And going digital, it was so much easier trying to get everybody to get things submitted electronically. It saves us on so much time on that. And then, the best benefit, I guess, at the end is the digital reports that we can pull at the end of the pay period through FieldFX. So we actually were able to pull reports, and it has all the billable and non-billable on it. It shows us exactly where we're at, so we can make sure the time cards match up with the actual tickets and the reports. And then also we have our MuleSoft system it's an API that ties our FieldFX Salesforce system to our to NetSuite for our payroll, and all the hours flow between the two systems, and all the time cards that are put in automatically flow between the two systems once they are submitted and approved by our technicians and our managers. So the digital reports, it's been wonderful having the digital reports, being able to pull that. And then our sister company, SPS, is also utilizing the digital reports, pulling, because they have a different payroll system than we do, and they're able to pull the same exact report that gives them all the pertinent information to submit their payroll. So, but I'm pretty excited to see the updated version of the Timecard app, being able to do the PTO, the pay time off. That's going to be wonderful having that option integrated into the system as well. But overall, it's been a tremendous help having everything digitalized with the payroll and the tickets. The Timecard app it's been wonderful since we've started that, working with FedEx and the frameworks. But I appreciate it, Emily.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Casey. We appreciate you sharing Shawcor's Timecards use case with us. I love hearing all of the benefits that y'all are experiencing. So that's really great. Thanks for being here. Next, I'd like to hand things over to Bob to go ahead and walk us through a demo.
Thank you, Emily. Hopefully everyone's now seen my screen. We're going to take a quick journey through the different interfaces that are available to you in the Liquid Frameworks Timecards app. And we're going to start in a place that might be familiar to some of you. This is the Liquid Frameworks e-ticketing module. We're running here in the mobile version. This allows the field user or supervisor to run disconnected in the field where there's no communications available. In this interface, I can see things here on the left, like jobs, tickets, quotes, and even in those EAM work orders if I need this information. Today, we're going to drill down to our current job for today, and I can see the information applicable to that job, right? And I'll open today's ticket for that job, right? And in this ticket, you see all of the information, reports, forms, and files that I need to do this task. You know, if you're interested, there's a lot of functionality in this that you can see in our prior webinars on the Liquid Frameworks website. For today, I'm going to go ahead and update my time. I can do that by clicking on the appropriate line items and seeing the details of my work, right? So here, I can input the number of hours I worked, or I can enter a start and a stop time if I wish, right? We're gonna grab today and say we worked from, oh, I don't know, what time did we start this morning? 8 a.m., right? And we worked on that until 1 p.m., right? So now my time card is filled out for me, right? Liquid Frameworks will use this information not only for the job and ticketing and for invoicing the customers and things like that that you're familiar with, but now also to create things like the time cards for me, right? If I say this job or this ticket, for instance, is now completed, right? Since we're able to work disconnected, I have the ability, right, at the end of the day, when I get back to the yard or my home or the office, to upload this information, right, that we've created. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and say upload that, and now that is in the cloud on the Liquid Framework system, available to everyone who needs it. And as we've talked about several times, a big part of what we're talking about today is our new enhanced Timecard phone app. I'm running today on an Apple iOS device, and this allows the user easy access to their time cards, timesheets, time off requests, right? In the top half of the screen, you see a calendar, and every day that has information, you can see a green dot below that date. So this week, right, Monday was Memorial Day, so there's a green dot for my time off there. I can review information here. I can see information entered by a supervisor, confirm that we agree. Let's say I know that, you know, yesterday, Tuesday, I was actually at a training class. So I could not hit click with my mouse, but go back to my phone and press that plus button, right? And we see, I want to know what type of work it was. I was doing a training class. It was a simple 8-hour class, done, and that's it. The information is now saved to the system. It's available for all those recordings, available for all those interfaces we were talking about. And again, as Matt mentioned, I may want to say, well, it was a 3-day class. I want to have to enter that again and again. You now have a copy entries from yesterday button. If I click on that on my phone, right, we see that gets copied over, and I now have Tuesday and Wednesday classes available as things that I have seen before. Right? In the upper right here, right, you'll see a calendar icon. And if I click on that, I go to a list of my different time cards, right? So previous and current. We were working in the current there, but I want to go back one, right, that I've seen before. Say, I want to confirm this, right? So maybe I had some entries in here. I've got some things that I submitted from the field, right? See all of that information available to me, and I can then make decisions, right, about what I want to do with this time card. I can review, submit it, and when I'm done, right, it's available in the back office, right, for all of those other users, right, to see that information or to trigger automatic notifications or workflow entries. And while I'm here, I can also go into my time off section and remember I've done my timesheet, I've put in some of today's work. I've looked at last week's work. I also remember that I'm planning a long weekend in June for my wife and I's 35th anniversary, and I can enter that vacation request now in the time off screen. You can access that from the bottom right corner. There's a plus button. I simply hit that. It loads up, brings me the dates. I know that I want to go into June, and I want the 29th and the 30th as my time off, right? These, of course, can be edited if plans change. I simply enter my start and stop, click the button, right, request time off, and I am done, right? So we see now I have a time off in September around Labor Day that has already been approved, and I have now one for the end of June that's in status pending. So all of that information is available now in the back office. So let's go to the back office, right? We see and use all of that information. For instance, I could see all of the timesheets of my group, right? If I'm a supervisor, an HR person, if I need to edit them, the payroll people can see the link between Timecards and timesheets and jobs and tickets here in the back office, right? So if I'm looking at a timesheet, for instance, one of my older ones, I see all of the information that the user gave me, right? And I can make decisions, I can approve this, et cetera, right? I can also see all of those time off requests. So we want to go to the time off request list. We see that time off number 17, that was me doing that today, and it's been submitted. And I have the ability now, I want to say it's approved. Save that off. Again, workflows can be triggered, notifications can be triggered. All of that information is now available to me. Right? As Matt alluded to earlier, all of that information is also impactful for planning. Right? So the schedule and dispatch module, for instance, can now see my time off. So I see that Bob is on vacation from June 29th to June 30th. I won't schedule him for any jobs in there. And as with any of the field effects modules, you can create appropriate reports and dashboards for the data. So if I look at my home screen, down below, we may want to report on things like hours worked or crew utilization or costing, certifications expiring soon or non-productive time. All of that information is available in this common repository, and you can use it for anything. Here in the Timecard dashboard, I could click through into that crew hours report, for instance, right, and see all of the detailed information, right? This data can be shared out into a variety of formats. Sometimes it's as simple as exporting these to something like Excel to import to something else. But as with everything else, Liquid Frameworks FieldFX is a very open system. Using integration products like Boomi or Jitterbit, we can link this information, share it with your HR and or payroll ERP system so that the information can flow freely all the way from that disconnected mobile app we started in today through the employee's phone, all the way to your employee's paychecks. Right? So now, that's a quick overview of 10 minutes of the new parts of the product. I'll pass control back over to Emily, right, and open up the system for questions.
Thank you, Bob. That was a great demo. I appreciate that. Yes, we do have some questions that have come in. If you have a question and you haven't asked it yet, you can put it in the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen, and we will try to get to all of them. So first up, from a service company perspective, how do you manage client approvals in timesheet process?
I'll go ahead and take that one.
Okay.
Yeah, so that really ties into one of our other modules. So we have one of our modules is customer self-service. And just to kind of talk a little bit about that for those of you that aren't familiar, customer self-service is a portal in which you give your customers access, and you can give them access to reports, dashboards. You can incorporate them into your workflow, right? So the way to solve the problem that I think you're asking about is for time that's been submitted by an employee through the Timecard app, how is the customer woven into that process? The way that we would handle that is you would expose that through your customer self-service portal, and you would have a workflow step that is specifically dedicated to your customer. So as the time comes in, rather than it just going through a regular approval process for payroll, which would all be internal, you would have an approval step that would be allocated specifically to your customer. Your customer would approve, and then you would set up a workflow step to where someone maybe internally would then approve after the fact. It's a great question though.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Does the system lend itself to use for regular rotational workers aside from the task order / ticket process?
Also a really good question. So this sort of gives us an opportunity to talk a little bit about one of the new apps that we're building right now. We're building some functionality around shift scheduling and rotations, and it factors in all the time off that we're talking about. So this is different. This is sort of a revision for those of you that are familiar with our current schedule and dispatch product. You sort of have a high level of visibility into all the jobs that are taking place and all the people that are available and the equipment that's available. And through drag and drop, you can drag people onto the jobs, but it's really meant to schedule multiple jobs at the same time. The shift scheduling functionality allows you to set up rotations, and essentially each employee can be assigned a specific rotation, and then the job is assigned what's sort of referred to as like a shift group, right? So this would be this type of job has a day shift and a night shift. And the employees that are available for scheduling have a specific rotation, meaning their days on and their days off. And time off also is factored into the filtering that allows a dispatcher to go in and say, we're going to drag Matt onto the job. So it's a more granular, job-focused form of scheduling, and it does have rotations baked in, and it also factors in the time off to allow the dispatcher to see who is actually available for scheduling. So we don't have that yet, but we will have that. That's something that we're working on now.
Is there a way to specify deep copy exclusions for time card copying?
So I guess the question there would be like specific fields is what it sounds like. So currently we don't have that capability to be able to factor out the actual specific deep copy fields, but we do have some deep copy functionality that allows for exclusions based on field sets and some other technical challenges. So I guess the next logical step would be, if that's a requirement and we're hearing that, which we obviously are, then we would just need to write something up and factor that in. But I could see that being for maybe certain types of fields that maybe you don't want to copy from day to day, right? Not just a blanket copy, being able to limit the data that's being pulled over. So it's a great feature request.
Okay, lots of questions today. Is there a way to hide the time off option? Our PTO requests are handled in our payroll systems app.
So we don't have a feature. So it's all based on security currently. So I guess the answer would be that it's not necessarily a setting. It's all controlled based on Salesforce security. So if in Salesforce you don't have access to the time off object, that's an actual object within the system with a series of fields associated with it, then the app hides the navigation button on the bottom, so the user is not able to do anything. That makes sense.
Okay. Is it possible to collect start/end times on each timesheet instead of the technician inputting total hours?
Great question, and absolutely. So we went through when we started going through the designs for what we needed to build. Salesforce allows for so much flexibility into the layouts and the metadata that are available to the end user. And so one of the things that we discovered as we were going through some of our existing customers and figuring out how are you tracking time? Some customers track start time, end time. Some customers track I'd worked 8 hours. And so we adhere to all the metadata in Salesforce. So if you go into that specific Timecards layout for that user's profile, sort of a technical detail, but in Salesforce, you can control the layouts. It's extremely flexible. We adhere to all of that in our Timecard app. So you would log in on your phone using your credentials, and when you do that, you have a certain profile that's associated with that user, and that profile for the Timecard object has access to a layout. That layout has fields of varying types. Start time, end time, could be number fields and so on. But we adhere to all of that because we recognize that our customers do need some flexibility. So the answer there is an absolute yes.
Okay, a few more here, Matt. What is the process/control between the time in the ticket done by the supervisor and the time reported by the technician in Timecards?
Emily, would you mind repeating that one more time?
Sure. What is the process/control between the time in the ticket done by the supervisor and the time reported by the technician in Timecards?
Yeah, it really needs to be. I guess it just depends on the business, right? So what we've uncovered and what the app allows for is that time can be put in. It doesn't have to come in from the ticket. The time can come in from the timesheet, and then on the back end, what you're doing is an administrator is looking at the data. So in the case that you wanted to open it up both ways, a supervisor puts in time for Matt, and Matt also puts in time on his app for the same time. So I guess the question becomes, how do we measure against the two and make sure that everything is nice and clean? That would all be done through reporting on the back end. What we've seen some customers do, though, is they sort of make a decision one way or the other. So what several customers have done, and what Casey was talking about earlier, is the time comes in from the ticket, and it's not the supervisor is putting in the time for Matt. I'm a technician, but the supervisor is tracking my billable time on the ticket. That's one way of getting that's the way of getting the billable time in. And on my app, I'm responsible for going in and looking at that time and approving, but also putting in non-billable time, right? So you don't have this exercise of needing to go after the fact and run some reports. But the system certainly would allow you to run reports if you do want to sort of open both of those avenues up and then marry it up after the fact.
Okay, we'll do one last question here. Is it possible to geofence or capture geolocation data on a time card?
So that is a great question. Currently, it's not. I've heard that feature request. We have geolocation. We support geolocation field types in our e-ticketing product, or with our e-ticketing module. So it allows you to geotag exactly where you are when you're executing certain actions within the system. But I have heard the feature request. So I'm not sure who asked that question, but I would be interested in a follow-up conversation with you to talk a little bit more about, what that requirement looks like, because I think it's a nice feature and I have heard about it before.
Okay, well, I'll make sure to get you that data, Matt. Thanks to everyone who joined us today. Thanks to our presenters, especially Casey, for being with us today and sharing Shock Horse story. This is being recorded and will be available on demand in just a few days if you'd like to watch it again. And just a quick reminder, if you'd like to stay up to date with FieldFX, be sure to follow Liquid Frameworks on Twitter and LinkedIn. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Casey.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you.